The values that I'm talking about are the ones in the Constitution and the Declaration. As I said, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, rule of law, democracy. If you go down that list that we said,
But what does it
whether
say?
it's freedom of speech,
What does the Declaration say?
Trump is attacking that. Freedom of religion, Trump is attacking
He's
that.
not attacking freedom of religion. How is
We
he
had a
attacking
Muslim
freedom of
ban.
religion?
We had a Muslim ban in this country.
No, we have never had an actual Muslim ban. That is an insane claim by you to
Yes,
say
we
that.
did. Hey, everybody, I'm Tim Miller. You might have seen me on the Bulwark podcast on YouTube or on MSNBC. I'm a liberal millennial, and today I'm surrounded by 20 Gen Z conservatives. My first claim is ICE has become a fascist institution, and it should be abolished in its current form. What's up, y'all?
So, the point that I want to make about immigration, ICE specifically, that I think it's worth making is a structural one, and one that I think you could respect. And it's the fact that, democratically speaking, it's been an issue that was not very popular before Trump came into power, and it was the central issue for which he was selected for the first time. And then the second time he doubled down, and it was an even stronger argument. You remember that the people in his rallies and himself were talking about mass deportations, and that idea won. What do you think is going to happen in the next election? Do you think that sentiment is going to disappear?
Well, look, we live in a constitutional republic, so just because you get elected on a certain issue doesn't mean you get to do whatever you want. If the next Democratic president ran on a campaign that said, shut down all the evangelical churches because I think they're doing hate speech, and they became president, and then they tried to shut down all the evangelical churches, people would say, that's fascist.
Yep.
That's wrong. You can't do that. That's illegal. What the president has done on the border, we can talk about what's happening with CBP, but with ICE, I don't think that a lot of people that voted for him pictured this. I think that if you described what they're doing in another country, you'd obviously say it's fascist.
Well,
you got people coming up in unmarked cars. They are wearing masks. They're jumping out and they're asking people for their papers. That's not American. That is not within our traditions or our rule of law.
How should they deport them? Should they knock on the door and be like, hey, Mr. Illegal, can you come out?
Yeah.
Do you want to have a little chat?
Yeah, actually.
They broke the law. They came here into this country illegally, and we have to enforce it. So, if you're going to call ICE fascist, which you guys call everything fascist nowadays, then what are we going to have? We're not going to deport them, and then the people are going to be ignored?
I don't think we need to ignore the people. I think if you
So
look
let's
at
have deportations.
There are a lot of Donald Trump supporters out there that don't like the way that ICE has been acting. You hear this from Joe Rogan. You hear it from Tim Dillon. What they have been doing is un-American. You should not be you should not be hassling people who are American
citizens. It's so American to bring in millions of illegals into this country and ignore
there are people
our
that
laws.
voted for Trump that
What
have
are
been
you talking
attacked
about?
by
Look. JP, my name is JP. It stands for Juan Pablo. I love the Latino people.
Great.
I might look like a white boy and have the white boy aura, but I'm a Latino man. And I understand that it might seem like they're coming after the Latinos, but really, what we're doing is respecting our laws. We're a constitutional republic.
They're doing illegal. They're not respecting our laws.
Pause. I'm sorry, but you have to respect me. When I say pause, you've been eliminated. You have to go back to your chair.
Good to see you, man.
As you can see, I'm pretty well aware of how this deportation game goes. A lot of relatives have to face it, and I got to tell you that it's very well warranted. I find that with the mandate that Donald Trump got in 2024, he got a stronger mandate, in fact, than he did in 2016 and obviously in 2020. He, in particular, had immigration and deportations, by the way, as being one of the strongest issues.
Yeah, I hear you. We just said this in the last one, though. Again, you don't get to break the law just because you won the election. That's not how it works in a free country. We have rule of law. We have rules. Here's the thing. What ICE has been doing, going after American citizens, going after people, going after folks that look like you and asking for their papers is wrong. Here's an example. Do you have your passport on you right now?
Well, actually, yeah, I brought it, but I traveled. But
no, I'm sorry. Do you have it on your person? Can you show it to me? Okay, you don't have it on your person. Well, that's interesting because there's a guy named George here in LA who worked at a car wash. Here's what happened. ICE rolled up to his car wash. He is a dual citizen. He was born in Mexico. He came here. He became a citizen. He has a wife that's a citizen and 2 kids that are a citizen. They came into his car wash. He asked ICE. He's like, do you guys have a warrant? He showed me a warrant. They didn't have a warrant. They said, can we see proof that you're from America? He showed them his driver's license. Then they said, can we see your passport? He didn't have his passport on him. They fucking grabbed him. They threw him in the back of a van, and he came downtown here to the detention center. George Reddest is an American citizen, got detained by ICE. Just the other day, the New York Times was talking about this, that there was an unmarked car in Chicago driving down Lake Michigan. 2 guys hopped out of the car. They were masked. They jumped out and grabbed these 2 joggers, and they're like, show me your papers. This is, I'm sorry, this is not mass deportations now. This is hassling American citizens. This is breaking the rule of law. This is anti-due process, and it's wrong.
The anecdotes you bring up are actually relevant because I could do the same thing for Medicare abuse and whatnot, but I'm not calling for drastic reforms or even an abolishment. You're calling for an abolishment of ICE as we know it. Now, you're pointing out to fringe cases.
These are not fringe cases. They're happening all over the country all the time.
Okay, so I'm arguing that the vast majority of the people that are getting deported are illegal aliens. You're pointing to a small percentage of folks that are getting deported because of obviously anything that the government does, there's going to be mistakes done. And I feel like the majority of the people of the country voted more than they did for Kamala for such things to happen. And so what you're pointing to is, I think, to be
like I said,
something that's an abstraction.
There are many people that voted for Donald Trump that have already said they're upset about this. Prominent podcasters have said that they're upset about what he's doing. So just because he voted, it doesn't mean he gets to act
so in 2008,
illegally and act with impunity.
No. All right, so
ICE is about to have a bigger budget than the entire military of Israel. It's an insane way. Thrilled about that over there. It's an insane way for us to be spending our resources in this country. They're hassling American citizens. They're hassling people who are here on legal visas. They're demanding their papers, like this is East Germany and the Stasi. That's not how you act in a free country. You can do border control and you can do deportations without having masked guys coming and grab you because of the way you look.
Well, if that's the case, then how come CBP and the other things before ICE and before Trump haven't been working, and that's why the people elected Donald Trump in the first place? So then what would be your solution that would be some sort of a middle ground? Because it seems like you just want to get rid of the whole thing.
What do you mean? No. ICE just started in 2003. We had Immigration Naturalization Services that was inside the DOJ. It happened the entire history of our country up until 9/11. There were plenty of ways to deal with this. We could have the FBI go after criminals. We could have the DEA go after drug dealers. We could have the CBP go after the border. This isn't working. What is happening now isn't working. When you are illegally detaining U.S. veterans and putting them in prison for 3 days, that is not working. That is not what happens in a free country.
Cases. That's like when Republicans brought up death panels for Obamacare.
It is not a fringe
And by the way, you say that some
real.
people like Tim Dillon don't support Trump anymore. Didn't Obama lose a ton of support in 2010? So what's your point? You lose some part of the coalition as you advance the ball forward.
My point is that in a free country, just because you get elected, that does not mean that you can start to do illegal things. We still have rule of law. They are doing illegal things all over the country.
Okay, you're saying he's doing illegal things to get rid of everybody who is illegal.
How do you think it makes sense for a masked person to jump out of their car and go and grab you? Well, how is that legal?
So there's no unmarked police cars before ICE did this.
Well, they give people due.
Is that not okay?
They give people due process.
How so? As compared to people that are already not even citizens in the first place.
I don't understand the question.
All right, so yours.
You've been eliminated.
Good to see you.
Hello, nice to meet you. I'm Tara.
Hey, Tara, nice to meet you.
So I guess I just want to know first, kind of a personal question. Do you know anyone who's been deported?
Do I know anybody personally that's been deported? No.
Like personally?
No.
Okay. I know a few.
I mean, I've interviewed some people, but I don't have any friends.
Oh, really? Tell me about some of the interviews. How long were they here for?
Look, I think that there have been people that were brought here as kids that got deported. We did a big thing on MSNBC. Jacob Soboroff was doing it with somebody whose mother had been here for decades.
Decades, you say. So that's interesting. So that's a lot of time to put off doing the process of becoming a citizen.
Sure.
So what do you think we should do about that?
I think that are a lot of other punishments that we could give somebody besides deportation. Somebody that's been in this country.
Not punishment. I'm talking about the solution. Let's back up from when the law enforcement begins. Let's go back to when they realize they are here illegally. Maybe they turn 18 as a child, or maybe they know as a child that they are an illegal citizen. What do they do next?
I would assume that they go to college, they stay in the country, they work, they go to church, they make friends, they try to do their best in a free country.
When do they fill out their papers? When do they take the initiative to become a legal U.S. citizen?
I mean, if your parents brought you here illegally, you can't take the initiative. You have to go back to your home country first before you do that, unless you're under DACA. And it's complicated. There are a lot of different rules. I guess my point is, the individual choice that you're trying to get to, that question. Look, a lot of individuals break a lot of laws, right? And we make decisions about how we want to punish them and how we want to enforce them as a society. Like, for example, I don't know, have you ever borrowed somebody else's Netflix?
Well, hang on, back up a second. So we're talking about legal citizenship. We're not talking about a streaming platform. But I just want to visit this topic.
I'm just curious. So have you ever borrowed
hang on a second. I just want to
Netflix?
revisit this child.
Yes.
Well, I want to revisit this issue with the child whose parents are illegal immigrants.
Yeah, great.
Let's talk about that, because this child is in America, right? Let's say they're going to a public school.
Yeah, great.
It's probably, most kids know what's happening. Why can't that child say, Mom, Dad, let's get on this. I know I'm an illegal citizen.
Any kids?
I have 2 kids, yeah.
You think a 7-year-old, a second grader
yeah.
is supposed to be like,
I
Mom,
would say
let's
that,
go back to Honduras?
I have a friend.
This is crazy.
I had a friend who was 16 years old who helped her grandmother apply for citizenship, and her grandmother is now a legal U.S. citizen.
That's great.
Why don't we have more stories like that?
We have a ton of stories like that. That's the story of the whole country.
So why don't you use your platform to encourage more of those stories instead of going after the law enforcement?
No, we should make it easier for people to do that. It's impossible for us to do that right now in Donald Trump's administration. They've made it much harder to come through by legal pathways. The refugee program is down to zero.
I'm getting voted out.
I'm sorry,
Just give me
they've
one
taken
second.
people from
I need to
CPS
tell
that
you
are here
about
legally.
something. RFK Jr. made a documentary called Border at Midnight. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to watch it. It's 20 minutes. It talks about the trafficking that is happening. We are in a state of emergency in this country. Okay, so
Then
yes.
go after the traffickers.
No, the
right,
law
pause.
Go
enforcement.
after the traffickers then. That's easy.
Thank you. This one.
Nice to meet you.
Hey man, you're looking good.
Thank you very much.
You're showing me up here.
You're looking good yourself.
I appreciate it.
What is your solution here to Donald
Well,
Trump?
I think that the
and
Trump
ICE?
administration should follow the law. And I think that there's a lot of ways that we can enforce immigration. That doesn't include having an internal secret police that has a bigger budget than the military of Israel. We have the CBP that can handle the border. We have the Drug Enforcement Agency that can handle going after drug dealers. We have the FBI that can go after terrorists. We do not need masked people jumping out of cars and asking brown people for their papers. And I think there's a lot of elements to, a lot of ways to enforce immigration without doing it.
Okay, I'd probably agree with you on that, but
Great.
would you say that this is a
I love agreeing.
I love agreeing too, but would you say this is willfully Donald Trump and ICE breaking the law, or that he has to deal with immigration?
Well, of course they're willfully breaking the law. Let me give you one example.
Well, one sec. But do you think this is him willfully breaking the law because he's malicious, or because things don't work out perfectly when you?
Oh, no. They're willfully breaking the law because they're malicious. For starters, everybody's masked. Why are they masked? Every other agency, every other police officer, every other military officer, they put their name on
to protect the identity of ICE agents, because
why would they have to protect the identity of ICE agents?
Because they're getting shot, because they're getting killed.
There are people that put themselves at risk. Podcasters are getting shot. Judges, how about judges or
Yeah,
prosecutors?
podcasters are getting shot,
How about judges or prosecutors who go after the gang members and who go after the criminals? The judges don't sit up there on that bench and hide their face because they're worried that the gang members are going to come for them. The prosecutors don't. There have been tons of examples of judges and prosecutors and other cops having people go after them. That's part of public service. In a free country, this is not East Germany, you don't get to put on a mask and go hassle people on the street. Here, talk about willful. This is what about what they did with El Salvador? What they decided to do is great. I'm happy you like it, so we can debate that. What they did is they took a bunch of people that were here. They did not vet them. They decided they were gang members based on their tattoos, and they sent them to a foreign country over the objections of a judge, where they put them in a gulag in another country. The people that were there, many of them we already know are not gang members. They were wrongfully sent. What did the administration do? They said F you to the judge. When it came out that many of the people that were sent to El Salvador were not gang members, they made fun of them, they attacked them. It is exactly what happened. The judge told them to stop the planes, and they kept flying the planes to El Salvador. This is an intentional effort to go around the law. Emile Bove said it. And look, the head of the whole immigration enforcement effort took $50,000 in a kava bag. And this is not a group
I'm not sure what
that is interested. Well, because it's not a group that's interested in the law.
Well, but I mean, again, I think that there has to be a distinction between what the president is trying to do broadly and then how that's practically applied.
Yeah, I just think that you don't believe your lying eyes. I mean, look at what they're doing over and over again. There are plenty of times. Let's go back to George Reddest.
How many people have been deported?
You've been eliminated.
I'd love to go back to George Reddest. rolling now.
Hi.
Hey girl, what's up? I'm Tim.
I'm Noelle.
Nice to meet you.
So I wanted to ask you, could you define fascism for me? How would you define it?
Yeah, sure. It is a government that cares more about the power that they have than individual rights, right? It's basically subverting individual rights in service to the state. There's a great book by a guy named Umberto Eco called Fascism, where he kind of lists out the 14 elements of fascism, but that's the short of it.
Okay.
Individual rights don't matter.
Okay. And then also, in your world, how would you like to see immigration, I guess, how would you like to see immigration policies be applied then?
Well, sure. I guess for starters, I'd like them to do what they said, which was go after the criminals first. And I think that, again, we have agencies to do that. We have the DEA, we have FBI, we have Border Patrol. I would like to start with that. I think that we should give a pathway to citizenship. Obviously, people that were brought here as kids, I think it's insane to suggest otherwise. I think people that have been here for a long time, that have been following the rules, paying their taxes, learning English, should get a pathway to citizenship. And then I think that the other folks that are more in the gray area, I forget it was the first guy who came up and said, knock on the door and say, hey, Mr. Illegal, could you get out? That seems like what to do, kind of in a free, fair country. Like go up to the door, knock on the door and say, hey, Mr. Lopez, sorry, you didn't meet these metrics. You have 4 months to get back to your home country. And then if they continue to break the law, or you can appeal this, you can go to asylum. If they continue to break the law, then sure, then you can send in law enforcement. And again, we have CBP and a bunch of other enforcement agencies that could do that. That's just a humane way to deal with this that I think probably has 80% support.
Yeah, and I think sensible conservatives would actually agree with a lot of what you said of a pathway to citizenship. I guess
I don't think some of your pals would. Do we have any pathway to citizenship fans in here?
I think I would say that a pathway to citizenship for those who are working here for a long time and for those who follow the legal process, because you can't cut in line, because that's not fair to other people who have been trying to. I have a lot of family as well who came and so if you cut in line, it kind of devalues everyone who took out maybe loans or borrowed money to try to get into the country legally.
You can't get in the country legally now.
But still, there's
there
people
are no
who
legal pathways unless you're a white South African.
That's not
If
necessarily.
you're a white South African, you can get in here.
I have family who
that's
came.
fine.
I have family. I'm Mexican. I have
during
family.
the Trump administration?
Not during the
They've
Trump.
changed the policies a lot during this administration.
But what I'm saying
we're
is
going to have negative net
so
migration.
that just means that people just come in, that people just break the law.
No, we're going to have negative net migration. We're going to have negative net migration in this country this year.
But-
The only countries that have that are like Venezuela, Syria,
But I
some
want to
African
address,
countries,
if I
and
can,
the United States.
if I can I address your claim specifically on fascism?
Sure.
Because fascism historically has been going after people who politically disagree with you, and what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, they're doing that for
what
sure.
we're
too.
seeing right now, though, is I would say that everyone should be treated with human dignity, everyone, regardless of your immigration status. But that being said, I can still enforce a law and treat someone with human dignity.
do you think Stephen
and
Moore's treating people with human dignity?
I'm not saying that everything that ICE is doing is okay.
Just generally, do you think that they're treating people with human dignity?
My concern,
What about
specifically, I'd like to
snuff
address the
films?
fascism claim that you made. Specifically the fascism, because we've seen even, for example, Charlie Kirk last month was shot and killed.
Horrible.
And so what happens when we use inflammatory flames like fascist, it paints people a certain
I hear you,
way.
Noelle, but here's the
do you
thing. If
understand?
they don't want to be called a fascist...
That's like me saying if you want lax border policies, then you're an anarchist. It's a false equivalency.
But the right
it doesn't
calls
add
the
up.
left
Someone can
communists and enemy within all the time.
Because you do this, then that
I'm just saying,
justifies it. That's not
look,
okay.
if they don't want to be called fascists, they shouldn't act like fascists. I just think that if this was not this country,
So-
if you saw
so do you
unmarked
think that
cars
everyone-
with mass people hassling and all, look at the story of Narciso Barranco. He's gardening outside an IHOP. A bunch of masked agents come out. He's an old man. A bunch of masked agents come out, hassle him, tackle him to the ground.
But
he's got 3 kids who are in the
they're
Marines.
In a fascist.
Why
I'm
would we
not-
do
and
this?
I'm
That's
not saying-
obviously fascist. How
I'm
else
not-
would you describe it?
I'm not saying that's okay. What I'm saying
How
is
would you
that in a
describe it?
fascist country,
Inhumane?
and yes, I would say that's not treating someone with human dignity,
Yeah.
and I believe that everyone is worthy of human dignity. But what I am saying
about
is that in a
sending somebody to a
fascist
gulag in
Can I-
El Salvador?
Could I finish? In a fascist country, some political dissent is repressed, so all of the media is controlled by the government. And so we still, even though there's polarizing rhetoric, we still have ways for people to express their opinion. We still have ways for people to appeal to civil systems, and they can still appeal for mistreatment by ICE agents. And so I think that's super important, because when we're calling people fascist
can't.
blatantly, that's what fuels political violence. That's what causes people like Charlie Kirk to be killed, because we're calling people Nazis, we're calling people fascists. That would be wrong if I went
Could I
around
just
calling
reply now?
every Democrat a
I agree.
communist.
Well, I agree with you that we're not a fascist country yet. What the claim was is that ICE is becoming a fascist institution. And to that point, the one thing that you said in that sentence that is just not true is that victims of ICE cannot contest their claims. If they get deported back to Honduras, they don't have a legal pathway. They're a U.S. citizen. There were kids. There was a baby that had a disease, like a rare kidney disease. It was a 5-year-old that is a U.S. citizen, got deported with his mother back to Honduras. The mother wanted him to stay so he could get medicine. That 5-year-old doesn't have a legal remedy. They're stuck.
I would say that
the gay hairdresser, I'm sorry, that we sent to a gulag in El Salvador, he doesn't have a legal remedy. They don't have legal remedies.
Are you referring to the prison system in El Salvador?
No, we sent like 200 Venezuelans to El Salvador, claims that they were gang members, and one of them, I did an interview with him, Andre Hernandez Romero. He's a gay hairdresser. Unless he was doing the makeup for Trento Aragua,
I don't think that people should.
He was not in a gang.
I don't agree with the way that
he doesn't have any redress.
I don't agree with the way that ICE is approaching the immigration system. I'm with you there. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with sending American citizens without due process. I'm with you. My concern specifically is using the rhetoric of fascist because it fuels political violence. That is my concern. It's okay to disagree, but I don't think that is an equivalency to Nazi Germany. I just don't.
I don't either. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, before we go any further, we want to take a moment to say thanks so much to Straight Arrow News for powering the fact checks in this video. Straight Arrow News is on a mission to raise the bar on journalism in a time of media bias and mistrust. Straight Arrow News helps you quickly find trusted information you need to understand the news, allowing you to dive deep into the topics that matter to you and the world around you. Their work is trying to break the bias bubble, helping you understand how every side of the political spectrum is reporting on a story so you get a full picture of the news. That's why we're so happy to be partnering with Straight Arrow News. They deliver the facts, unbiased, balanced, and designed to make sense of a complex world, getting you the clarity you deserve and news you can trust. Go to san.com/surrounded or click the link in the description to check it out. By clicking that link, you're not just supporting this channel. You also take advantage of a better way to get the news. Welcome back to Trustworthy Journalism. Thanks again to Straight Arrow News for partnering with us on this episode. Now, let's get into it.
My next claim is it is not worth the costs of gun deaths every year to have the Second Amendment. Ooh.
All right, well, first, you made the claim, so I want to hear your reasoning behind it.
Well, yeah, obviously this is a reference to the Charlie Kirk quote about how it was worth some gun deaths every year to have the Second Amendment as it's currently written. And my view is this, look, this is not an argument to repeal the Second Amendment. My point is that we shouldn't have a fatalistic view about this, to just say we have the Second Amendment, nothing we can do now. Some people are going to die because of it, and so that's just the price of freedom. For example, in Canada, you have a right to bear arms still, but it's like you have to get a license. There has to be training. You have to pass background checks.
Is that not also in the United States too?
No.
You don't need a gun license.
Well, no, but no. What I'm saying is, it's not like a driver's license. Like you don't have to like go to when you're getting a driver's license here. It's more akin to what you do in Canada. You have to go to classes. You have to
You
prove
don't have to
that
do
you know.
any classes.
You have to prove. You have to prove that you have to know how to use the guns. Like there is a process.
There's no process in the United States.
Well, in a lot of cases, you don't have to go through a process. Sure, people have easy access to guns in this country without going through the process. There is easy access for younger people to get high-powered weapons.
That's
in this
definitely
country.
not true. But can you name the legislation that would have prevented Charlie Kirk from being assassinated?
Well, no, because there wouldn't have been a piece of legislation that could have prevented Charlie Kirk from being assassinated. My point is that his initial claim was in service of this idea that we have a maximalist view of the Second Amendment, where there is nothing that we can do to limit gun deaths. In the United States, we had 46,000. In the United States, we had 46,000 gun deaths in 2023. In Japan, they had 10.
Okay.
In France, they had 800 and something. So like, there is obviously many things that we could do to change the cultures, the rules, the laws, and the mores of this country to not have the gun deaths that we do.
I don't know
think
the statistics of these other countries. I kind of
Well,
doubt that there's
Japan is
10 only.
Yeah, 10.
You're not giving me really any piece of legislation that would actually fix these things, unless you're talking about the abolition of the Second Amendment, which we can get into that. And the majority of these gun deaths are handguns. I mean, let's be honest here. They're handguns and they're suicide, right?
Yeah.
If we limit that number, if we actually take that into account, it's not really looking as bad as
it's looking. It's looking pretty bad. Again, 46,000 versus 10 is a pretty big gap. The suicide.
But how many percent? What percentage of that?
I think about half of them are suicides.
And what percentage of that is handguns? Are you
Oh
advocating
no, a
for
bunch
banning
of
handguns?
handguns. I'd like to answer this.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think this
go
is an
ahead.
important question because a suicide attempt via handgun. Now I'm going from memory, so these stats might not be exactly right, but it's something like if you try to kill yourself with a handgun, you get it right like 9 out of 10 times, basically, right? If you try to kill yourself using a lot of other methods that people try to kill themselves, a lot of times it doesn't work, right? And so it increases the number of suicides in our country versus other countries because people have easy access to firearms. In our country, the amount of firearms we have in this country, the next closest country is Yemen.
Okay.
We have double the amount of them.
So tell me, what policy proposals are you proposing that would actually limit this? You can't give me a policy proposal that we don't already have.
No, I can give you a bunch that I would be for. I think we go back to the 90s assault weapons ban. I think we should limit high capacity magazines. I think. But here's the thing.
Ban. Would any of those have stopped the mass?
Yeah. Yes. I guess this is my point. You keep saying no. You are on the side of we should just give up. There's nothing we can do. I'm saying we're the only country where this happens.
You haven't even asked me my position, so that's not true.
All right, so
you're
trying to refute my claim.
I can see a case. I can see a case for like universal background checks and things like that. But ultimately, right, the pros of guns, I would say, outweigh the cons of guns.
Really?
And yes, absolutely.
Well, you're obviously more at risk of death if you have a gun. We'd all be less safer if everybody had a gun right now. Would you feel more or less safe if everybody had a gun in here right now?
I would feel plenty safe if I had a gun.
You feel more safe?
Yes, if I had a gun.
Coming to a debating show, you'd feel more safe if there were 20 youth carrying guns.
Why?
You've been eliminated by the group.
Hey job.
Hey man, what's up?
What's up, Tim, right?
Yeah, Tim.
Dylan, nice to meet you.
You packing?
No, I'm not packing right now.
Good.
We're in California.
Good. Better, just making sure.
Okay, well, are annual car deaths worth keeping cars in society?
I'm glad you brought up the cars. With car deaths, obviously, we're not going to go back to horses. People need cars to
So they're
go
a
around
net
the country
positive
for
to
their job.
society, right?
I would say the cars are, but here's some other things
So
you
aren't
have with
guns a
cars.
net positive to society?
Here's some other things you have with cars.
I think they are.
You have seatbelt. There's a million laws related to cars to try to minimize car deaths. You have seatbelt
like
laws.
legalizing
You have speed,
DUIs,
you have
right?
speed limits, making it illegal to do DUIs. So my point is that I think that on the right, there are a lot of people that want to take the maximalist view of the Second Amendment.
Should we ban
and say,
supercars because they go faster or something? Because
I
that
don't-
would be the argument
I
for
don't-
like
I
an
don't-
assault rifle.
I don't want to ban supercars. I don't think. I don't know. But my point is that if we regulated guns in the manner in which we regulated cars, that'd be a good step. I think we'd probably have less than 46,000 total gun deaths next year if we did that, and I would be for that.
To get a gun, you have to do certain things to be able to purchase a firearm.
Yeah, but again, it's completely uncomparable to the types of things you have to do to get a driver's license to drive a car.
Well, actually,
cars have
illegals
tons
can
of
get driver's licenses in
cars.
California.
Cars
so
have
there's not
tons
much.
of cars have a bunch of safety checks. There are tons of things we do to try to mitigate deaths via cars. Like this analogy just doesn't make any sense. Like what I'm saying is that what we want to do is figure out ways to limit the amount of gun deaths. I'm not happy with the fact. Are you happy with the number of gun deaths we have in this country?
Of course not.
Okay, so like, are you satisfied?
it's
Like
a-
we
I think
have
it's a
way
heart
more
problem.
than any
I don't
other
think it's
country
a
in the
gun
world?
problem.
We have. Do people have bad hearts in other countries?
I think
they
everyone
have
has
better
bad
hearts.
hearts.
Do they have better hearts than us?
Every person in the world is inherently bad by nature.
Okay, so then why do we have the most gun deaths here?
Because the wrong people are getting guns.
You don't think bad people get guns in Yemen or in
never said
France or in other places?
I never said
our
that.
country is the
Pause.
only place where this is happening.
Pause. You've been eliminated by the group.
Well,
Thank you, man.
I had to bring it up.
Thank you. Hey, how's it going?
Hi, Tim. My name is Hannah. So I want to address the claim. First of all, I want to clarify. You are not in favor of abolishing or confiscating guns, correct?
I'm not in favor of abolishing the Second Amendment. I could potentially be in favor of a gun buyback situation where it's voluntary, for sure.
Okay, right. So I also want to talk about, you talked about there's other problems that are facing America, not only that there's more guns and that's why there's more gun violence, correct?
No, I think there's more gun violence in America because there's more guns. I think it's pretty simple to understand.
Okay.
We don't have anywhere near this level of gun death in any other country in the world, any other first world country, basically any Western country. If you're under 18, the most likely way you're going to die in this country is by gun deaths. That is not equivalent in other similar Western nations.
Right.
So I think it's basically the guns.
Yes. Okay. So more guns equals more gun violence. I want to address that claim by first of all bringing up how the majority, or at least almost 50% of all homicides caused from guns, are in cities where the gun per capita is much lower than the rest of the country. So, and secondly, I'd like to bring up that from 1990s to the early 2000s, we had a major decrease in homicides by guns, but we had an increase of guns by nearly 50%. So the other thing I'd like
we had an assault weapons ban during that time. I guess the stats in the cities, this is kind of a funny thing, and I'm glad somebody brought this up because the pro-gun side in this country is always trying to like cut and dissect the demographics down. They're like, okay, so there was a higher percentage in this city or among this type of person or among this demographic. The only reason you can do that kind of statistics is because we have so many freaking gun deaths in this country. There were 10 in Japan in 2023. There were 10 in Australia. There were 236.
Yeah, I'm
in France there were 887. We had 46,000. It seems pretty obvious. I don't know why we have to come up with other convoluted reasons why we have all these deaths in this country.
Right. So I think that there are a few reasons. First of all, I think that fatherless homes is a big part of it. In America, we have the highest rate of any country in the world of one single-parent households, the majority of those being without fathers. Also, 76% of people who commit violent acts come from fatherless homes. Additionally, I think a second problem that we have is releasing criminals back into the street. It's our criminal justice system. The majority, 76% of people that have violent crimes in the United States have a criminal record of some sort, whether that be an arrest, a conviction, whatever. So we need to stop releasing people back to the streets.
I agree with
and
that.
then third, I also want to address your claim that that there's this attitude that nothing else can be done. I disagree with that. So I want to point out.
Red states,
so I want to go back to my point about the 76% of people having a criminal record. If you have a criminal record in the United States, you cannot legally purchase a gun, right?
Yeah.
So we can agree that if you have a criminal record, you're not obtaining these guns legally. The rest of them, which are like the school shooters and the mass shooters, they are getting their guns legally. However, these are people.
Suicides, it's the domestic violence deaths. I mean, look, there are a lot of other. Again, 25% of the gun deaths in this country. You're making me do math live. Would still have been like 11,000 gun deaths. That's still 100 times more than in Western European countries. I hear you. I think that dads should be in the homes. I think that we shouldn't, violent criminals, I think we should keep behind bars. But that is that is not like the reason that we have this problem. Like I'm a dad, I'm in the home. I have to worry that my kid, when they go to school, the school's gonna get shot up. A person that lives in the Netherlands doesn't have to have that worry, and it's not because of the number of fatherless homes in the country.
I disagree that that's necessarily the case, that it's not a cultural thing, for one. I'd also like to talk about the school shootings, for one. I am myself 100% in favor of having armed guards at schools. I think that we need to get criminals.
Was there an armed guard at Columbine?
No.
Was there an armed guard at Parkland?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
Do you remember what happened in Uvalde? Do you remember what happened in Uvalde?
Okay.
The cops, these were the most militarized police you have ever seen in your life. And they showed up to the school, and there were cops everywhere, and little babies were getting murdered, and they couldn't do anything about it. There was an armed guard at Parkland who ran away from the school. Like, one armed guard is not going to do anything. Door locks are not going to do anything.
Right.
At Columbine, I grew up a mile from Columbine. The deaths that happened in Columbine, people talk about all these things. A lot of it was people were coming outside for lunch, and you can't put these schools all behind fortresses. It's just not realistic.
Right. So I'm not really. I have thought a little bit about the practical implications of this. Right. I've done a little bit of mental math on the budgeting and everything. It's more than just one armed guard for one, and it's not. This could be as like cops sitting outside.
How many armed guards do you need?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. Hey, what's up?
Hi, nice to meet you, sir.
Nice to meet you.
I would disagree with your point on that there isn't many restrictions in America for obtaining firearms. I just 2 weeks ago was in a 5-hour class regarding training of firearms, and I believe that those are actually required. Specifically in California, you have to obtain a CCW.
Rules are different in California.
Yes, rules are different in California, that's correct. I lived in Texas for last year of my life, and there are still a significant amount of restrictions and regulations and requirements for obtaining firearms in those states, and specifically in Texas, where there's a lot more people in firearms in those more rural areas. I personally felt a lot safer. I understand that's different person to person.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can't rent a car in this country if you're 24, and you can buy a handgun in every state. You can buy at 24, you can buy an assault weapon in every state. 18-year-olds can buy guns in some states in this country. Can't buy a beer, can't buy a Zin. Like, there are literally states where you can't get a Zin, but you can buy a weapon. It's crazy. So you just can't tell me that, like, the rules for getting guns in this country are as strict as they could be. Like, we could obviously add some more rules.
I'm not saying they're as strict as they could be.
We could at least give do the Zin standard, I would say. I think would be fair. At a minimum, I would go with the renting car standard. I don't know.
25.
You guys would not be probably thrilled about that, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why people need an AR-15 if they're 24. That's just for me.
There's There's a difference between hunting rifles and Armalite rifles. That is a case, and there's different reasons behind those. But no, I don't. I disagree with that. Just saying. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet with you.
So I just wanted to bring up your claim about how you said in certain places, like, an 18-year-old can own a gun, can't do all these things.
Yeah.
Would you consider the fact that they might be in more dangerous places or live by themselves in which they feel that they need to purchase a firearm to be protected? I myself are a 20-year-old. If I lived by myself and a 200-pound man comes in trying to rob my home, I feel that if I had a firearm, first of all, if they were to think that firearms can be owned by anybody, that reduces the amount of them coming into my home in the first place. And second of all, if I were to have a gun, that is the ultimate equalizer. I cannot fight a 200-pound man off, and for me, it kind of raises the security.
You might be able to. Hey, look, here's the thing. I understand that some people are going to want to have guns for their protection. I understand that makes people feel safer in a free country, that you want to, within certain limits, want people to be able to do things that they feel like they need to do to protect themselves. I get all that. But here's the thing, like, the facts just don't bear that out. Like, if you have a gun in the home, you're 500% more likely to be killed by that gun than if somebody that doesn't have a gun in the home.
I'm also much more likely if I live in a city where, like here in Los Angeles, I could present you with, in 10 to 12 miles from here, you can go and buy a 3D printed gun for cash anywhere. There are several places where you can do that. And in a place like this, I feel that I would need to protect myself individually. And whenever there's government outreach and they take the rights away from people and they take the rights from guns, the gun violence is higher. It is actually not lower. And
that's just not true. In this country, I have one of the people, maybe it'll be you, we have 3 minutes left, will come up here and explain to me how Japan only had 10 gun deaths. Like, it isn't.
Unfortunately, we have a way bigger population density that is much more proportionate than Japan. We have a very big, more wide, vast country
10
with
to
different social
46,000.
constructs. They only have really one major city rather than
Australia had 236. Australia had 236. France had 800. So, like, we are the only country where this happens. It doesn't make people safer. I'm sorry. I understand that people might want to feel like it does.
So what do you
having all these guns in this country
in order to keep the people safe? How do you think that people are going to keep themselves safe individually in their own homes? If I call the police and somebody is trying to attack me, I have no time.
Sure. Again,
I have no time.
Well, for starters, I would do education. I think if people want to have a gun in their home, want to keep it locked, want to keep it in a safe, I'm for that. Again, I'm for you doing that if you want. I'm just telling you the facts is you're much more likely to accidentally kill yourself with the gun than you are to kill an intruder who ran in. But you would have that legislation in
that classes and those educations to not do that. So
great.
that is in place. So if you rightfully own a gun by law, if you own lawfully, if you own a gun lawfully, you will make sure that you have the education and steps you need to not kill yourself with that gun.
The claim is that a lot of us seem to agree on this stuff. The claim is that it's not worth the cost of some gun deaths to not do anything to restrict to the Second Amendment.
When you give out freedom, there are going to be marginalized parts where mistakes are going to happen. There are going to be bad things.
That's life.
So
it's
would you
complicated.
consider that if you're going to kill yourself with that gun, like you mentioned, homicide, how about instead of trying to take guns away, would you rather give maybe that funding or set up some sort of mental health system that can keep
I love
people
mental
from,
health funding. Who's for more mental health funding in here? And oh, really? Everybody? Why aren't any Republican elected officials for that?
There are plenty.
Not in red states. In red states, they're slashing mental health funding.
The point I'm trying to make is if we have a drunk driver that crashes because they're drunk, are we going to ban cars? No, we are going to focus on the people.
You're going to make drunk driving illegal.
But
you're going to make drunk driving illegal.
Yes,
exactly.
and it is illegal. But we are not going to make guns
use
illegal because certain people do certain things with them. Are we going to ban cars for everybody else because one person does one wrong
You're
thing?
going to make drunk driving illegal. We already went through this with the other guy. There are a lot of restrictions that you can have. Thank you. Good to meet you. Nice. What's up?
Isaac, good to meet you. I want to go back to what someone else brought up earlier, that it's not a gun problem, it's a heart problem. You keep going to this fact of Japan only has 10 gun deaths.
Yeah.
How many stabbing deaths do they have? How many car deaths do they have?
Way less.
How many suicide deaths do they have? They still exist.
Way less. Yeah, of course they still
And
exist.
so
yeah, way less though.
we already are at a point
trying to
in this-
mitigate harm.
Okay, yes, we're at a point in this country where there are more guns than people. We can't go backwards, we can only go forward. These are the cards that we've been dealt with.
Sure.
And so you can look at Japan, you can look at Germany, which has a lot of gun deaths and stabbing deaths. France, the UK, Nicaragua, tens of thousands of people are getting slaughtered.
Are we trying to be Nicaragua?
No, what I'm getting to the point is it's not a gun problem, it's a heart problem. And frankly, it's a lack of having Jesus in your heart problem, because we as a society, and globally have gotten rid of the moral giver, so there's no morals behind what we do. There's a lot of violence and there's a lot of reason for someone to do something if they don't see each other in the imago Dei that we're fearfully and wonderfully made. When we eliminate that from the picture, violence increases, and you can see that everywhere around the country. Yes, in the US, I'll give it to you, there's more gun deaths, but if you look at anywhere else in the country, there's a lot of death and a lot of violence, and that ultimately is what we're both agreeing with, that there needs to be a reduction in violence. And frankly, getting rid of guns doesn't do that, lessening guns doesn't do that. Fixing people's hearts and allowing them to know that they're saved through Jesus is what gets them to that.
Look, I want people to try to become their best selves, whether that's through Jesus, through the church, or otherwise. I'm for that. I'm just saying, like, there are other countries that have smaller populations of Christians, that have greater populations of Christians, and they all have way less gun deaths than us. Like it isn't.
How many deaths do they have?
The fact.
We eliminate gun deaths. Just talk about that.
Violent deaths,
violence.
violent crime is higher in this country than it is in any other first world Western country. It's lower than, sure, like Nicaragua and some other countries, but of the first world Western countries, violent crime and death is higher here. And a lot of it is because we have such easy access to firearms. And all I'm saying is that we should try to fix that.
Yeah.
And I think that policy-wise, I appreciate what you're saying about people finding Christ. I think this administration and their policies are about as un-Christian as imaginable.
I'm not talking about this policy or this administration. I'm talking about people.
Okay, right. Well, no, but so that's what I'm saying. I think that, like, if we're going to do this, it should be it should be unified across the board. And if we're trying to encourage people to improve their hearts, I'm for that. But people are still going to have demons. There's still sin. People, and if they have easy access to deadly
So why are we not
guns,
putting the effort into fixing that than trying to eliminate guns? And if you look at the gun deaths, there's suicide. That is a personal problem. That is not a mass shooting problem.
How would you suggest that we go into helping more people find Jesus in their hearts? Like,
by
as a
allowing them
government?
to understand that we are flawed, that we need to
But
save
as a
them.
government, how would we do that?
Well, as a government, it's not the government's responsibility, it's the Holy Spirit's responsibility, and we
Okay.
are the seed
Yeah, but
planters.
we're here debating about what the government's policy should be.
Yeah,
on very
exactly.
different
And so the
things.
government's
so-
policy is not going to solve the problem because we're both trying to reduce the violence. That's the problem at hand.
Yeah. I think that obviously you could reduce the violence because there are many other governments and many other places that have successfully reduced the violence. And I think that it would be best for all of
Overall
us.
violence?
Yeah, look,
Which
everybody
countries?
wants. Yeah, everybody in Europe. We have a higher violent crime rate than every country in Europe. It is just true, except maybe like
guns?
Belarus and Ukraine, some of the Eastern Europe, but Western Europe, of course.
Does that have to do with guns?
Yes, it has to do with guns.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. And we're the only outlier on this front. And look, the people that die of the gun deaths in this country.
That's terrible.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, they did not deserve to be snuffed
absolutely
out.
not.
They did not deserve that, and
But then-
they're only at risk
yeah.
of that in this country.
And
They
so,
should
I
have
mean-
an opportunity to live a full life of purpose and meaning, whether
Exactly.
that's with Christ or otherwise.
But
That's
limiting
how
the
things
guns
should go in a
doesn't
free
do
country.
anything.
Pause. Time's been out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. My next claim is the Trump administration is an attack on American values.
Tim, nice to meet you. Scotty.
What's happening,
nice
man?
To meet you.
You've been ready. I've been watching you.
I've been ready. This has been so much fun.
Let's
talk about what are the American values. Let's find some common ground first, okay?
Sure,
Would you consider hard work, pursuing the American dream, an American value?
Sure.
Awesome. We agree right there.
Yeah.
Would you say that all men are created equal?
Of course, yeah, of course.
Okay, great. Then where do you get that from in your liberal perspective, right? Because in the Declaration of Independence, right, it says that it's bestowed by our Creator, right? Where do you get those values?
Yeah, well, look, the Declaration of Independence is probably the classic document representing liberal values, liberal democracy. Like liberal democracy, small L liberalism is something that that basically began here in this country and proliferated into Europe and around the world a lot because we promoted it. Those liberal values are basically freedom of speech, freedom of religion, pluralism, tolerance, rule of law.
Where do you get those values? Because when you're saying the Trump administration, right? I believe the Trump administration actually protects American values, right? It protects the American values of the unborn, right? Those are things that us as Gen Z, we are passionate about, right? Because it has killed, Martin just said, 28% of us. Abortion has killed 28% of us Gen Z. So that's something that we're very passionate about, and you can only find that when you find your value in a creator.
I mean, we could go back to the Enlightenment. I don't know that we need to do a bunch of John Locke talk here, but essentially the values that I'm talking about are the ones in the Constitution and the Declaration. As I said, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, rule of law, democracy, pluralism. That is the foundation of what America was founded on. That's what the founders wrote about. You can go read about it in the Federalist Papers.
Okay, but they had those Judeo-Christian values that were instilled from the beginning.
I hear you, man. But you're trying to make this about faith, and what the founders were explicit about was that this country was not founded based on religion. A lot of them were religious, of course.
Yes,
but we have freedom of religion.
Yes, we did have freedom of religion.
We have freedom of religion in this country. So if you go down that list that we said,
but what does
whether
it say?
It's freedom of speech,
what does the Declaration say?
Trump is attacking that. Freedom of religion. Trump is attacking that.
He's not attacking freedom of religion. How is he attacking freedom of religion?
We had a Muslim ban in this country.
No, we have never had an actual Muslim ban. That is an insane claim by you.
Yes, we did.
That is an insane
It had to be overturned by the Supreme Court.
Pause. You've been eliminated by a lot.
Good to meet you, man.
Thank you.
Let's go. What's up, man? Tim.
That's good, man.
Nice job. A little Clementine there. We're ready?
It's gonna be sweet talk.
Okay. I hope so.
I would like to know what you mean by American values.
Again, so obviously there are a lot, but I'm thinking about the values that were promoted in the Declaration, the Constitution by the founders, the things that make America unique. So if just going through them, I would say freedom of speech, freedom of religion, free markets, democracy, pluralism, and the rule of law. Those are the things that come to mind. Obviously, there could be other
Which
American
ones are the
values.
ones that you think Trump is going against?
All of them. I mean, when it comes to freedom of speech, right now, you're getting cracked down on in this country. If you wrote an op-ed criticizing Israel, you got jailed. That was Ramesa Ozturk. There are 60 Minutes. There are media organizations that are getting attacked if they're mean to Mr. Trump. J.D. Vance said that if you said something mean about Charlie Kirk, the people should call your boss. So they're going after freedom of speech. They're shutting down the ICE block apps.
Now, real quick, with the criticism on stuff, there's a lot that you're throwing at me right now, so I'm trying to keep up.
Okay,
but with the criticism on Trump, I actually agree that there could be a lot of criticism on Trump. I think there's a lot of things that he does that are not reflective of traditional Christian values. So I would want to know, just because he...
So we can agree on that, on the Christian values. That wasn't really the claim, but let's just do it for fun.
What?
He is terrible. And when it comes to just basic Christian
hold on,
values,
real
he's
quick.
terrible.
I haven't seen him really say okay, some press can't say certain stuff or whatever. He's not exactly doing
The
that.
Department of Defense had a press room where people get to go in and ask questions to the press secretary. They made them sign a pledge that they were not going to report unapproved information, and now the only people in there are the Turkey newspaper.
That's something I have to look into myself. I haven't heard of that. Okay, but traditional Christian values. I'm interested in what you mean by traditional Christian values, though.
Well, sure, like loving your neighbor as yourself. I think that Donald Trump is pretty bad on that. And I think if you go down the list of American values, obviously, but Judeo-Christian values, this administration has a disrespect for all of them. I mean, again, we talked in the first claim, or we talked earlier about the deportation regime.
Right.
I think that's very unchristian. I think that canceling Medicaid so that people don't have health care services is pretty unchristian. The way Trump talks to people and treats people.
There's a whole lot of stuff.
people. He's nasty. Like he's nasty. That's un-Christian, but it's also un-American. But anyway, so would you agree with that? He has anti-Christian values?
I mean, I wouldn't. That's the thing, right? Like, there's a lot of things that I don't agree that Trump like reflects Christian values on. But at the same time, to claim that he's going against the founding of this country, I just don't think is completely fair, because I haven't seen any actual, by definition, fascistic behavior, unless you were trying to, of course, get to the other points that we talked about.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, we could go through them again. Obviously, free markets. He's attacking with the tariffs, with the way that we're now taking over certain countries, the rule of law. He's going after his political opponents through the DOJ. Democracy, I need to try to overturn the election.
I don't think there's
stormed the Capitol.
I don't think there's enough concrete.
Well, you saw people storming the Capitol, though, right?
Yeah, but there's more. There's a lot of context regarding that stuff that, like, I obviously don't support any sort of political. Oh, sorry, I said.
Pause.
My bad. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, you may get back to your chair.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hello.
Hey.
My name is Bethlehem.
Bethlehem.
Yep.
Great. I love that name.
Nice to meet you. So your claim that the Trump administration is against the founding principles of American values in general, I like to kind of establish that American values are inherently Christian while they're not explicitly, because they're built on natural law, and natural law is essentially a theology that's based on Christian values and Christian principles.
Yeah.
So I think in that regard, I think you are kind of off there, that America is inherently built on those Christian principles, being right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, those all coming from Jesus Christ. And I'm not saying that...
Again, this isn't the claim. A lot of folks want to talk about this here. I guess I'll play this game if we want to. I think that Trump is like maybe the most anti-Christian president that we've had that I can think of in his personal comportment and in the policies that he put forth. But I think that the founding principles of the country, again, obviously there were Judeo-Christian values, but like they were agnostics. Thomas Jefferson, they're explicit in respecting many different religions, and they came to the country so people could have freedom of religion. But I guess I would say that Trump is both anti-Christian values and anti-American values.
Well, I mean, we're not here to assess Trump's sins. We're not priests. We're not God himself. So I don't think...
It's you guys to keep bringing up.
No. I mean, my point is that while he doesn't particularly reflect Christian values, because he sinned like the rest of us and things like that. But my point is that he
sinned a little more than you, probably.
He's a little older, so he has more time.
I think probably even at your age, he's probably sinned a little more than you. I think we could agree there.
Okay. Okay. But my point is my point is that he has lowered unemployment, right? He has given child credit tax cuts. Huh?
Get rid of the child tax.
Well, I mean, I'm sure. No, Well, I guess that was in 2017. Sure. Yeah. Planned Parenthood has now been officially defunded, protecting life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, the part of life where America was founded upon.
No, the liberty is the key one in there, right? Which is people should have the liberty to act as they please, even if they oppose this administration. This administration is targeting political foes across the board. He calls them the enemy within. They're investigating political foes through the DOJ. This is fundamentally un-American. It's the type of thing that happens in banana republics. And Donald Trump is the only one that has participated in this in my lifetime. I may be going back to Nixon.
Thank you.
Good to meet you.
How you doing, Tim? Charlie.
What up, cowboy?
Nice to meet you.
How's it going?
Whoa! Fantastic. Thank you.
Six
We're good.
shooter.
We're good. All right. I want to start with freedom of speech.
Yeah.
It was during the COVID times that the Biden administration was very tough
Agree.
on
We can
people,
move on. I think Biden is. Well, I think that was horrible. What Biden did on freedom of speech during COVID, I think.
Well, and I don't think that's something that we should just move on from,
let's-
because we're saying that Donald Trump is against American values.
Yeah.
I think the freedom of speech in this country is the strongest it's ever been, and I think it's the freest it's ever been.
No.
In fact, maybe some to a detrimental point, because so many people are able to say so many things without being blocked, without being censored. Their accounts aren't being banned anymore.
Let's talk
They
about the
were
tech
being
companies
banned
then.
so more so during the Biden administration than they were during.
Let's talk about the tech companies then, if you want to. So the thing that we both agree on that the Biden administration was doing was they're going to the tech companies and saying, "Hey, you should censor misinformation about COVID, whether it's ivermectin or whatever." And tech companies were doing it voluntarily. The government wasn't making them do it, but it still was bad. I think. I still don't think they should have done it. The Trump administration is doing the exact same thing right now with information about ICE. They've gone to Facebook and to Apple and told them to stop Apple got rid of their app called Ice Block, and Facebook shut down Facebook groups where people were going on there and saying, hey, I live in this neighborhood. ICE has been doing raids in the neighborhood. FYI, just so you know, ICE is in your community. In a free country, I think people should be able to post on the internet and say, hey, there are folks in my neighborhood, and without the government coming in and shutting it down. The government came in and shut it down. So if you were mad about that during the Biden administration, to me, what's happening now with the Trump administration is worse on that front. They're also doing the same thing on speech about Charlie Kirk, Israel, and other things.
The Biden administration actually paid Facebook to go against what the Republican Party was doing and conservative values.
Well,
whereas the Trump administration, I believe, with Twitter and with Facebook and all the social media that we have right now, it's actually been a lot, again, more freer and more concise, and we're able to talk about things without being banned and censored. I don't know how many people's accounts got censored during the COVID years.
I mean, Elon's still censoring people. Zuckerberg's still that censoring is still happening, but that's in the free market. I'm fine with that. What my problem is when the government, when Donald Trump is coming in and saying you can't post about ICE, you can't. If you did that op-ed, what do you think about Ramesa Obsturk? You know that story? She was a tough student. She co-wrote an op-ed, basically calling for divestment from Israel. She was detained, imprisoned by the Trump administration for co-writing an op-ed. That didn't happen during the Biden years or the Obama years or the Bush years. That's crazy, isn't it?
I would say that is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
but
the
again,
vice president.
Your claim is that Donald Trump is against values.
American
values.
Yeah,
Free speech is one of those American values.
I've been trying to get through the whole list, but you guys want to talk about Christian values and other stuff. Again, freedom of religion, free markets, rule of law, democracy.
How is Trump against freedom of religion?
Again, we talked about the Muslim ban. With free markets, you've got the tariffs, where Donald Trump is bullying companies to come in and force them to bend the knee to him. Free market companies, or else he's not gonna tariff them. It's crazy. It would be you guys would be talking about how socialist it was if Kamala Harris said, "Hey, Tim Cook, you got to come in here for me not to add a tax to you. And what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to compliment me. You're going to bring me a little trophy that says that, hey, this staffer that we have who's a non-binary indigenous really appreciates your work and wants to honor you, Kamala Harris. And if we give this to you, then you won't tariff us." Everybody would call that socialism because that's what it is. That's what's happening in this administration. Tim Cook came to the White House and gave Trump a trophy from a MAGA person. It's like, please don't tariff my iPhone components. And Donald Trump gave him an out on that, but then he's tariffing other things. This is not the free market. Donald Trump's running a socialist regime straight out of the White House. He just is.
Pause. You've been eliminated by the
Thank you.
Thank you, man. Good to see you. Clock down.
Timothy.
Tim?
Pleasure.
You're Timothy. You're the full name.
I go by Timothy. Yeah.
Okay, my parents called me Timo, actually. So I've never been Timothy.
Yeah, that's okay. It comes from the Greek, which is Timotheos.
Yeah.
It means honoring God.
Honoring God.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. I want to address your claim about the rule of law and being a Western value, specifically about ICE and everything. I think what the Trump administration is doing with ICE is actually protecting his constituents. He's doing exactly what I elected him for, specifically the family of Lake and Riley.
Yeah.
Who's protecting them?
Well, that's horrible.
Let me just ask you this. Do you agree that we have an immigration problem in this country? Or we did? We don't anymore.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would say this. We did during the Biden administration. They let in too many people, and that's why the original claim was not about Border Patrol. I think we obviously need Border Patrol.
I know.
And so I think the
But it's addressing the rule of law.
Yeah, I'm talking about addressing the rule of law here and how the government, the rule of law is not just, part of it is protecting innocent people from being attacked, right? Totally. Yeah. But another part of it is protecting all of our rights from being infringed by the government. Let me tell you about a guy named George Reddest. He was right here. He's a security guard outside a marijuana farm. Okay? He's a veteran. He's a U.S. citizen. He was driving to work. They were raiding the marijuana farm because I guess there were undocumented people working there. George is American. He's a Marine. He's trying to get to work. The ICE agents broke into his car.
Arrested by ICE.
Yeah, arrested. Okay. They sent him to prison. He did not get a phone call.
Okay.
He missed his child's 3rd birthday. Okay. He was there for 3 days. They put him in solitary confinement for 48 hours.
If he's an American citizen, he can sue.
Of course he can, but the administration hasn't said anything about it. But okay, then let's talk about the
people
they sent to Honduras.
But you can sue and you can get restitution for that. But if you're an illegal
the 5-year-old
alien,
in Honduras can't sue.
But if you're an illegal alien, you don't have the rights guaranteed to you by the Constitution. Because you already broke the law coming in here. Now, secondly, what I also want to talk about is the freedom of religion and the Muslim ban.
Yeah.
The Muslim ban, you talking about in the very first Trump administration when he said the Muslims can't come in?
Yeah.
That was a safety threat.
No, it wasn't.
That was a safety threat.
Wasn't?
Yes, it was. We were at war. Everybody was
You
at
can
war
just
during that
ban
time.
terrorists. You don't have to ban Muslims. I was at during that
But
first
you
administration.
understand that they don't come over saying, "Hey, I'm a terrorist."
Well, yeah, sure. That's what
They
we have.
come over and they say,
guys, that's why we have a
No.
CIA. This is why you keep being like, look,
no, not
there,
even.
there are ways to go after bad people. We've done this in every administration besides Trump.
course.
There's a way to go. I mean, there's a way to go after terrorists. There's a way to go after drug dealers without hassling people and having a secret and having a internal police that's masked
Internal police.
going after people.
One more
that's
thing
crazy.
I have to address.
Democracy. I hope none of you guys have chosen to go after the democracy point, which I think is interesting.
Well, we live in a republic, but the claim that you say
Do
that
we?
ICE is
I believe Texas just
ICE is
invaded-
linked into
Texas
the
just
secret
invaded
police
Illinois.
is ridiculous, is laughable, and everything.
No, it
but
doesn't.
yes, it is. Yeah, it is. It's
They're
laughable.
secret. They're acting in secret, and it's Donald Trump's internal police
They're
force.
not acting in
They
secret.
are acting
They
in secret.
have to
They're
have
masked.
a warrant by a judge for
No, they
each
don't.
person they do. Yes,
No,
they do.
don't. No, they don't.
Yes,
You're
they
just
do.
wrong. Look,
Have you ever interviewed somebody from ICE on your show?
You could read ProPublica.
Have you interviewed someone
yeah,
from
actually,
ICE on your show?
I interviewed Dean Cain, who is a Superman actor that has joined ICE. He is not the smartest tool in the shed, but he's decided that he wants to join ICE now, even though he has no experience doing that. Look, man, you're wrong. They don't have warrants. Read
do have
ProPublica.
warrants.
Read your local news here. Read the Los Angeles Times. Many people have been detained by ICE. American citizens undocumented. I think ProPublica recently said it was like 170. Hundreds of American
But when
citizens
you're
have
carrying-
been detained by ICE
Listen,
without
listen,
a warrant.
when
No, you're wrong. That just
okay,
isn't happening.
That maybe those things do happen, but when you have 10 million people that have come in, there's going to be things that fall through the cracks. Let me ask you this: you believe that bad things happen with the police, also, right? Do you agree that they should be abolished as well?
Well, no, because
Exactly.
No,
right. So maybe they should be reformed. Maybe there should be some other
things. Can I reply to that? Because I do think
Sure.
there's a key
Exactly.
difference. Exactly is to me. Police have unions. They have accountability to their people. When the police mess up, as you mentioned earlier, people can sue the police, but also police acknowledge their mistakes.
And we can sue ICE. We can sue the federal government. That's why we have lawyers.
That is not
for
happening with
restitution.
ICE right now. ICE has wrongly detained a bunch of people. They wrongly sent a bunch of people to El Salvador, by the way. The Department of Homeland Security has not
I think El
acknowledged a
Salvador
single
prisons are
mistake.
great, by the way.
Oh, really?
I
Tell
do.
me about that.
Yeah.
So I want to talk. So there, the guy that was the makeup artist that got sent to El Salvador. You were cool with that?
I don't know about that guy.
Okay.
I'm just saying
what about
overall,
the guy?
El Salvador, the president is amazing.
Okay. Well, we sent 200 people to El Salvador. We said that they were.
Well, if they're an American citizen, they're going to have passports, they're going to have documentation, and so they're not going to be ending up in jail.
Well, yeah, we sent 200 Venezuelans to El Salvador.
American citizens.
Claimed, no, not American citizens.
Okay.
We claimed that
So
they're
not American
Nicaraguan.
citizens.
You think that we can just send people to foreign gulags, even if they're not
So
American?
they're not
if
American
they're not American
citizens.
citizens, we can do whatever we want.
Well,
is that what you're
they
claiming?
broke the law coming in. If who doesn't want them? If Honduras doesn't want them, if anybody else doesn't want them, where are they going to take them?
Well, no, several of them
Because
didn't
we
break-
told
I'm
we
sorry,
told the president of
I'm
Colombia
sorry.
to say, hey, take
I'm
your
sorry.
guys back, and he said no. we don't
Sorry,
wanna take them
several of
back.
the Venezuelans that came to the country did come through legal pathways, and we deported them to an El Salvador prison because they had tattoos that looked like they were trying to Aragua.
Like MS-13?
Trying to Aragua.
Okay.
Several of them
Do you
have
think
come
the
out-
cartels operate in other countries besides just
No.
El Salvador?
My question is, do you think that
I
somebody
know.
is no? My question is to you. Do you think someone that's a legal resident in this country that came the right way from Venezuela can, without due process, be sent to a foreign prison in El Salvador? Do you think that that's what the government should be doing?
Hold on. Are you talking about an American citizen?
No, they're Venezuelans that came to the country through a legal process. They were working through legal pathways. They were
through
refugees,
legal pathways
or asylums.
in regards to
they came to this country, and we sent them to an El Salvador gulag.
Did they
for
break
4
any other
months.
laws?
No, and the administration has not acknowledged it, has not apologized to them. One of them is a guy I interviewed. His name was Andre Hernandez Romero. He was a makeup artist and a hairdresser. He came to this country, and he went through the CBP1 app, just like you were supposed to do. He tried to do it the right way, and what we did is we picked him up, put him on a plane, and we sent him to that El Salvador hellhole.
Is he still there?
4 months later, the Bukele and Maduro cut a deal to get him out of there. He was in there for 4 months. We did that to him. He came to this country, he tried to do it the right way, and we sent him to a foreign country. I'm sorry, that is against American values. This was a country where people wanted to come
There's
here.
gotta
It
be
was
a
a
lot more
shining
to this.
city on a
There's
hill.
gotta be a lot
where we
more
were
to-
welcoming people throughout the
I
world.
understand that, but there's got to be a lot more to the story than you're saying.
There isn't.
Pause. You've been eliminated by the group.
That's good. Whoa, we rolling. Oh, buddy.
That's timeout. No. These people who crossed into this country, they broke a law. And so there are sort of asylum seeking processes that you do when you're outside of the country. Yeah. What I don't appreciate is the cutting in line aspect of this, because it's almost like you're at a grocery store, you cut someone in line. I don't appreciate that because there were Venezuelan individuals who were criminals being housed in New York City, and that was coming out of our taxpayer dollars. Now we're talking about American values. Yeah. I voted for Donald Trump, not because of a mutually exclusive interest. I voted for him despite it. I wanted to see closed borders, and I wanted to see things like gender ideology diminished. I wanted to go back to a time where we weren't self-IDing in bathrooms and we could actually vote legally instead of having things like illegal aliens voting. The issue that I have and what we need to actually fix, immigration it's been thrown around like a poker chip. We've seen both sides utilize it, but I think what Republicans have actually done, and we can look at this through the DREAM Act bill, which was actually voted against by a lot of Democrats, including AOC. So this DREAM Act bill was going to create a process for citizenship for DACA individuals. Yeah, I consider parents who are smuggling their children into this country as terrorists, domestic terrorists. Really? Because, yes, I do, because these individuals, they're not having a decision on being in this country. They're sort of foregoing out of our taxpayer dollars education, right? And we're paying over $9 billion federally.
Well, I got to tell you, I just think that this is going to be an area where we aren't going to find much common ground, because I think that somebody fleeing communism in Venezuela, somebody fleeing oppression that is looking for freedom, that wants to come to this country and is doing so through an asylee process or through the refugee process or through the TPS process. Somebody that wants to come to this country because they want to give their kid an opportunity.
Yes.
I think finding a way to make that happen is the Central American value. It is what made America what it was.
Have them wait outside. Have them wait in line.
No, please. Some of them were able to get in through temporary protected status or through asylee status, and they were able
Joe
to.
Biden.
I'm sorry, and they're able to come into this country to give their kid a chance,
which we did not want.
Can you just let me finish? They're able to come to this country and give their kid a chance. And to me, that is the American story. Like our country is, as Ronald Reagan said, the shining city on the hill. We want to give people fleeing oppression a possibility here. And what you said is that if a parent tried to come as an asylee and bring their kids into this country, and I've worked with some of these kids, that they are a terrorist and a child trafficker. No, they are a parent that loves their child, that wants to give them an opportunity that they could not have in the communist hellhole where they came from. And we should not treat them bad. We should not.
Taxpayers' dollars.
No, a lot of them pay taxes. They come, they work. Obviously, we should have rules.
Let's look at this.
American values. This is the American value. We should not be sending people
all of
back.
us actually voted for Trump because we wanted what was happening right now. We want people to finally be in line
which is
with
nice. And that's the final American value, which actually none of you wanted to talk about, which is fine.
We can agree on that.
But no, we can't actually. Because
Donald Trump lost.
Democracy. We voted Donald Trump lost the 2020. Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. He lost the 2020 election.
He won this election by the popular electoral vote.
And then he pretended like he won. And then people stormed the Capitol and attacked police
because
they don't respect democracy. Excuse me, let me finish. And you guys, and maybe all of you, I don't know, you're speaking for everybody. Many of you voted for him after he instituted an attack on our democracy, on the Capitol.
What was the attack?
What
was the attack?
Oh, the one. People that were
referring to the Nancy Pelosi one that was a stunt to actually look like it was Donald Trump, but it wasn't.
Yeah, that's not what happened. Sorry.
It did. It was on record.
No, you can watch the tape. You should talk to the police. The last claim is that the reddest states are governed worse than the bluest cities. Ooh. What up, man? Good to see you.
So obviously, in order for us to understand your claim, I would love to understand why you say that. What specifically about red states makes them govern worse than blue cities?
Well, I think that there are kind of two ways to look at that. One is just in a technocratic sense, like the outcomes are worse, right? Poverty rates are higher, violent crime is higher, divorce rates are higher, economic dynamism and opportunity is lower, school scores are lower.
Violent crime is higher.
I mean, per capita, the highest violent crime states are, I think, almost all red states except New Mexico. I think it's Alaska, Louisiana, Mississippi. Those are the highest violent states when it comes to violent crime. Yeah.
Okay. So the blue cities that have overwhelmingly more regulation on guns, they have more gun violence. Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, I don't think that's exactly true. There are some cities that have
Give me an
really
example
high.
that's not true.
Well, there's some cities that have a lot of gun violence, like Chicago, and a lot of the guns are coming in from.
They have some of the strictest gun regulations in the
Yeah,
entire
but
country.
again, you have more violent crime in places like Tennessee than you do in places like Massachusetts
I
and
don't
New
even
York.
think that that's true. No,
It
not
is
even
true.
New York. Let's take Chicago and New York, who have some of the strictest gun violence. Chicago's a horrific example
A lot
of
of
this
those
because they
guns
have
are
the
coming in
worst
from
gun.
Indiana, yeah. Which is fine.
Okay, and how are they coming in?
People are trafficking them in from Indiana, and they should be stopped.
Trafficking
yeah.
them? Okay,
Yeah.
so they're coming in illegally.
I don't know why you're whispering it.
Well, they're coming in illegally,
Yeah. Okay.
right?
Yeah. Sure.
But they have the regulations to crack down on the guns. So are you telling me that regulation doesn't work?
Well, no, regulation certainly does work in certain cases. There are ways to
But why
limit
doesn't it
it
work in Chicago?
Okay, but again,
Because they have
it is
strict gun
working.
problem.
I guess
They have strict gun
so
regulation.
you're trying to do the debate bro thing with me, like
No,
where
you
it's just,
need to
but it
do
just isn't working because the facts are not right. Like in the states that have the least gun violence are blue states. There's places like Vermont and Massachusetts. I'm sorry. The gun violence. I'm just sorry. You know why? Here's why. Because the gun violence. Like you hear about like the street crime gun violence, and there certainly is some of that, particularly in Chicago, where it's really bad. But there is a ton of gun violence that's happening across rural America related to domestic violence, and having guns in your home just leads to suicides, leads to wives being menaced and killed, and like that is happening all over the country.
But there's a lot of other factors that go into the fact. For example, in the rural areas, they're going to have less deterrence from the community. Not everybody lives together, so they don't have the threat of their neighbors shooting at a robber, for example. They have less law enforcement, the time that it takes for law enforcement to get to these crimes that would be happening, like, for example, all of the things that you're mentioning, is a lot higher than it would be in blue cities. But that still doesn't take away from the fact that you even agreed Chicago has the highest gun regulation in the country, and they have the most amount of gun violence. How does that work? And why
Okay,
why are they
again,
better
because we
governed?
live in a free country, and Chicago is not like a fortified environment where nobody can come in and out. But I guess my point is that I don't think that I think that Chicago's governed awfully. Actually, the mayor of Chicago is terrible. But my point is that there's a lot of conversation about that the mayor of Chicago is terrible. This is in the news. People talk about this all the time. There's not a lot of conversation about the fact that in West Virginia, in Tennessee, in Louisiana, and Mississippi, there is greater violent crime than there is in Chicago. It's just not as in condensed area. People don't talk about it, and they're not doing anything to solve it. And the governors in those states are actually making it worse, exacerbating the problem.
You make this claim that on average, the blue cities are governed worse than red states. But when we talk about Chicago, which happens to be one of the biggest one of the biggest cities in the country, the most populous, they have the strictest gun regulation. It's like, oh, well, we can't talk about that. We have to talk about the rural red states.
I'm happy to talk about it. I'm just saying, I think that Chicago, objectively, Chicago is governed not well, and I think that they should be governed better.
What do you think about Los
objectively, it's governed better than West Virginia.
What do you think about
Los
Angeles?
if you live, Los Angeles is objectively governed better than West Virginia or Oklahoma on every score. Where would you want to send your kids to
What
school?
policy differences?
Sure.
between
Again,
LA and
education, access to healthcare, services, transportation, poverty levels. Poverty levels are way higher.
But the affordability is also higher in those states as well.
Because nobody's good to see you, man.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey, it's Noelle again.
Yes.
Good to
Hi.
see you. What's
Good
up?
to see you again. So I know a lot of things were mentioned, and just to kind of level the playing field and find common ground, you mentioned, kids dying because of school shootings. I'm with you there. My heart breaks every time I hear something, and I want something done about that. Same when we look at, immigration, and we're seeing human trafficking, kids being trafficked at the border by the cartel. Horrible. So all of the violence against children, I want something done by that, and I think it's horrible. That being said, and I think we can agree on that, when we look at blue cities, they have some of the most extreme abortion policies. For example, Cesar Santangelo in Washington, D.C., there were justice for the 5, and they still haven't received justice, but they were 5 babies that were aborted at the 3rd trimester. And so we see these cases happening in blue cities, and I think that's super problematic. Do you think that is?
I'm against 3rd trimester abortions. I'm like quasi pro-life, I would say. I'm where a lot of people are in the country, which is in the middle on that issue. I think a lot of times it gets bifurcated into extremes. But now that Dobbs has been overturned, kind of like the dynamics has changed a lot in what the laws are in a lot of those cities. But I agree, and I think that the Kermit Gosnell thing, whatever in Philadelphia, horrible, a horrible story. Here's the problem though, is that again, on average, like the red states do a horrible job of protecting young people. You mentioned gun deaths, but it's also child poverty is higher in the red states. Infant mortality is much higher in the red states because they aren't funding healthcare to the same degree. And my view is, look, when I think about what I'm looking for in a governor, and somebody to govern a state or the country, I used to work for Jeb Bush. One of his lines was that he wants people to be able to live a life of purpose and meaning. And that's kind of what I judge everything by. I want people to have an opportunity to live a life of purpose and meaning. And what does that mean? It means that when they're born, they get to stay born, right? And then it means when then they grow up and they go to school, then they have good schools where they have a chance to learn and do well. And then if they get out of school and they have like financial issues, like that there's a safety net so they at least have a chance to go out and find a job. Yeah. Like on that metric, like red states are doing terrible. Like infant mortality is high. The schools are terrible, and the safety net has holes in it. And I think that I agree with you that there have been some extreme abortion laws in blue cities, but I just don't think that matches up to the just horrible way that red states are governing on that metric.
I agree that the education system is a mess, and I think we need to change that. I think homeschooling should be a more popular option, and people should have education choice. And unfortunately, we don't see that a lot in blue states. We see that in red states to allow more freedoms of education choice. But I do want to say, you mentioned that we should protect a life after the child is born. Yeah. So do you agree that we should protect a life, allow the child to be born? Because so you're pro-life then?
Again, I mean, I think that this is a complicated issue, right? Like, I definitely am not for third trimester elective abortions, right? I think that there are exceptions with the life of the mother. I think that some of the red state laws are really terrible, like bounty laws in some of these cases. I think it's a little different. The abortion isn't the issue. Like, we could probably sit here and debate the 6-week and 8-week. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there are different lines on there. But I guess my point is that I'm for that. Again, I think that people should have an opportunity to live a life of purpose and meaning. That means getting born, but that means staying born, right? You don't want infant mortality when they're death. You want to make sure they have good hospitals. And I just think they're failing on this front. I live in Louisiana. I live in New Orleans. We have school choice. I'm for school choice too, actually.
Awesome.
But like, they don't fund the schools. So it's like there are 3 really great schools. And so if you have great parents that work hard to get you on the lists and make sure that you get the tests and you get to go to the good public schools, then you're great. If you have absentee parents or bad parents, then you end up in these crappy schools. And my point is, you can have school choice, but you also gotta invest to make sure kids have opportunities. They're doing that in blue cities. They're not doing it in red states.
Sure, but we have to allow people to have that option. And we're seeing a lot of restrictions in blue cities towards school choice. And so people should be able to choose, because then they're not going to be able to even have it.
I agree. I just think on balance, like if you wanted to send your kid to school and you were just like, would I go in San Francisco or would I send them to school in Shreveport? If you want to give them the best chance to succeed. I think pretty much everybody would say San Francisco. There'd be some weird woke stuff that they'd learn, but like they would get a good education, and like there is not that investment happening in red states.
But what we're seeing in blue states is we're seeing a lot of governors and we're seeing a lot of mayors be very adamantly pro-choice. Like they're not advocating for any sort of restrictions on abortion. I think that's super problematic, and I think we can agree on that. And so if you have governors and you have mayors who are saying it's okay to kill children, I don't really trust their judgment if they think murder's okay.
Yeah, again, and I think that there are differences of opinions on abortion.
Thanks so much.
Good job, thank you. We rolling. All right, here we go.
So I think when you look at blue cities and red states, one of the things you see a major difference in is like investment in terms of what private companies are investing in. Like New York City, San Francisco, you have a lot of these tech companies that are also hiring a lot of white-collar workers, right? Whereas some of these blue or red states you're talking about, Mississippi, Louisiana, used to be blue-collar states that are now blue-collar jobs have dissipated from and gone overseas because of free trade and stuff.
Let me object to that. Just let me give you one example.
Sure.
So again, as I mentioned, I live in New Orleans. I was thinking about this as I was trying to come up with a good example. If you just go up the Mississippi River, right? So let's take out the coastal states, because I do agree they're kind of different in the kind of economy it is. If you just go up the river, you got New Orleans, Memphis, St. Louis, that are all in red states.
Yes.
And then you got Minneapolis, St. Paul, that's in a blue state at the top. Minneapolis, St. Paul is thriving. A lot of people want to move there. There's a lot of economic opportunity. There is a huge...
Also has a lot more private companies investing in...
Well, right, but why? It's because the governance there has been attractive. People want to move there. A lot of tampon access in Minneapolis, thanks to Tim Walz. You know, any bathroom you go into, you can get a tampon. A lot of people want to go to Minneapolis. It's a liberal state that has been governed well, where the education is good, the healthcare is good. So no wonder companies want to go there, because diverse communities are welcome. And then you go down the red states. St. Louis was once one of the biggest cities in the country. Memphis was once one of the biggest cities in the country. New Orleans, where I live, used to be very dynamic. They have hollowed out.
Right, and
people don't want to move there because they're governed like crap.
Okay, when you're talking about moving somewhere, where are you primarily going to move? For a job, right? Yes. And so, okay.
So it's the job of the states to try to attract the good jobs. The blue states have been doing that. Why?
So
it's not about geography. It's not like randomly. It's because of the coast or because of the certain industries. Minneapolis was a smaller city than St. Louis.
Tennessee has had a lot of companies move there, tech companies, right? The thing is, I think it's a false equivalency here because, okay, so a lot of the jobs have left from the Rust Belt and everything. These are the states that you're just saying are, worse than on average.
Pennsylvania's being governed great.
cities.
Josh Shapiro's doing a great job. Michigan is being governed. Detroit is having a renaissance right now. They have a Democratic governor. Wisconsin is being governed well. Milwaukee's having a renaissance. There's no reason that New Orleans or Memphis or like any of these other cities could be like
states you're talking about,
Wisconsin.
the cities you're talking about have white collar jobs. So obviously those people are going to
they've attracted
better
them.
on average because
That
they
was
have
the
better
Rust Belt.
income.
Pittsburgh, Detroit, Wisconsin, that was the Rust
If
Belt.
you look
They've
at
all had
Ohio
Democratic
and
governors.
Indiana, not as many white collar people live there, and so of course outcomes are going to be worse on average. And now I want to go back to your
Sorry, you've been eliminated by the...
Thanks, man. Good to see you. Welcome back. What was it, JP?
JP, yeah.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, nice to see you again.
What's up?
I don't really want to talk about like states, cities, because I see what you're doing. You're mentioning the states, we're mentioning the cities. But again, like we all know, like it's no surprise that people are always talking about LA and New York. I came to the city for the first time with my little sister. It's beautiful. It attracts eccentrics. It's a wonderful city.
Where are you from?
It represents America. I'm from Miami, Florida, where you don't see all this homelessness, right? But you see it here. No, you don't see it like here. And it's no surprise that it's on the news all the time.
Yeah.
So I want to move away from that because I know you're going to mention specific states and you're going to ignore the social conditions there, the poverty rates, et cetera. I'm not going to do that. I want to talk about the word Morris that you mentioned. I assume you're a big Tocqueville guy.
Yeah, sure.
Alexis de Tocqueville?
Yeah, well, and I'm getting old since I'm a dad, so it's been a decade since I've read de Tocqueville. But yeah, sure.
For the normies, Alexis de Tocqueville loved to talk about inclinations, right?
Okay,
about
sure.
Morris.
Yeah, Morris.
I think that today, liberal cities have an issue that's not really about government. It's about hyper-individualism, right?
Yeah.
And we're losing, let's say, the Morris, the inclinations to make America great.
Yeah.
Some of those are represented in, rural America. And it's imperfect, hard to compare these places.
This up, yeah.
But I think that you sometimes make things so much about identity, about hyper-individuality. You mentioned gay, Latino, black. You brought demographics many times today. And one thing that Trump does and Republicans do is they talk about nationhood. They talk about being an American. And right now with liberals, a lot of times they're like, why do all these people have American flags in their house? What are you proud of,
Did you watch the protests, the No Kings protests? It was all liberals, a lot of American flags out there.
Yeah, a lot of American flags, a lot of them, saying things that don't make
and Donald
sense.
Trump did the thing where he called them the enemy of the people. The enemy within, the enemy from within, the people that were protesting him, he called them the enemy from within. He has very kind things to say about foreign despots that like him. If you're a Sharia law dictator.
You are confusing foreign policy making, like he's trying to negotiate and get a deal,
anyway,
and you're trying to make
let's go back.
Maduro loves Putin, and that's
Pause, you've been eliminated.
I wanted to talk about some traditional value stuff, but I appreciate it, man. It's okay. All right. What's up?
Good. Martin, nice to meet you.
Martin, nice to meet you, man.
So I think that the whole framing of kind of red states versus blue cities, it's kind of a bad framing because we're talking about different levels of analysis. I think the best way of looking at this would be what happens when a state goes from blue leadership to red leadership. And I think the best example of that is the state of Florida under the leadership of Ron DeSantis. So under the leadership of Ron DeSantis, has the poverty rate of Florida gone up or down?
And I don't have all of the Florida stats in front of me. But I will say, well, do you want me to do a little Florida talk?
Sure.
I'll give you the downside of Florida. I think that right now what you're seeing in Florida is a big rise in cost of living because people don't want to move there. I get that. There's a supply and demand.
But the poverty rate of Florida has gone down.
Yeah, there's supply and demand. There's an Adam Smith element.
Yeah, why has it gone down to Florida?
I think probably because of economic development and opportunity that's come to the state, I would guess.
Yeah, the main reason why is because when you lower state taxes, you attract more businesses. Businesses come in, that creates more jobs and opportunity for people, which is what you see under Republican leadership.
Yeah.
And that's really why you're seeing major companies and people leave states like California in droves to go to states like Texas and Florida with preferable business.
California is doing better than the poverty rate than Florida is, though. But look, Florida has big issues.
Because Florida
has a big insurance rate crisis. So look, if you're right. If you're doing well in Florida right now, if you're like one of the tech bros that moved from San Francisco to Miami, you're doing well.
It's more than
the
just
health
that.
insurance. It's second.
We've had record job growth
second
in
most
Florida under the leadership of Ron DeSantis.
I think it's the
mainly because when you have pro-business policies, you're going to have more job growth in your states.
You love DeSantis. That's great.
I mean,
were you for him in the primary?
I think he's. No, I voted for President Trump, but I think that.
Really? Why?
Why did I vote for
Over
President?
Ron DeSantis? The primary, that seems like a crazy thing to do.
I think that President Trump's leadership was great in his first term, and I think we're seeing it again in his second term. But I think let's stay on the topic of Florida here.
Okay.
So in Florida, you've seen, like I said, you've seen record job growth, you've seen record number of
starting to go back around the other way. Yeah.
What was that?
I mean, Florida is starting to hit tough times. There was definitely a boom with Ron DeSantis, and right now they're in a huge insurance crisis, right? Getting home insurance in Florida is a nightmare, in part because of climate change. Yeah,
that's because of hurricanes.
Yeah.
That's not the fault of Ron DeSantis.
Well, it certainly, as a governor, it is your obligation to try to make sure people can live affordable lives in your state, and like there's a major insurance crisis.
Because there's a lot of hurricanes that are coming into the state?
I mean, again, yeah, and it is making it unaffordable to live there. Obviously,
I think we should focus on things that are actually within the control.
Okay, well, how about health insurance? That's what I was going to say.
Second, lowering taxes, getting businesses to come in, getting people to move to your state, which is why we've seen a record number of people who've moved to Florida, especially since it's come under Republican leadership.
Yeah. Second amount of uninsured in Florida. Look, here's my thing. I didn't use Florida as an example because I think Ron's done an okay job compared to some of the worst red states, right? But if we're going to talk about it, I don't. Look, I intentionally didn't want to do like gay stuff as a gay here to like just kind of all kind of focus on that issue. But as a gay parent, I wouldn't move to Florida because Ron DeSantis put in a law.
Well, you disagree with the vast majority of Americans who are moving there from blue states.
Well, I'd like to explain why I would move there because Ron DeSantis put in a law where any Karen could sue a school if a teacher has Antango Makes Three, the book of gay penguins. If they have to read that in second grade.
Schools are teaching porn in our schools, absolutely, you should be able to.
Is that a penguin porn book?
There are the main.
Have you seen a gay penguin porn book?
The amount of soft porn on our libraries is
no.
ridiculous.
I'm against porn. I'm also against porn.
So then you're against the vast majority of the books that have been banned in the state of Florida.
Well, no, but I guess my point is that you could sue a teacher for having a picture of them and their spouse in Florida. That's like something that's legal now. They had a bill.
Yeah, I don't think gender ideology and these other weird sexual orientations should be pushed on kids. Absolutely.
So that's an interesting question. So my kid's 7. She's got 2 dads. So she went into school, and the assignment was.
Okay, we kind of strayed a little bit away here from the original.
No, it isn't.
Topic.
This is about Florida's governance.
Yeah, can you agree that the economics of a red state has gotten better since coming from blue leadership?
I would like to finish my hypothetical. And so. If they are given an assignment which is give us your family tree. My daughter's given an assignment that says give us your family tree in Florida. Okay. And she does that assignment, and it includes 2 dads, and that some other kid in the class doesn't like that and goes home and tells their mom or dad, and then that dad in Florida now can sue the school.
The American people should be able to sue for anything. I also like to note real quick that you didn't answer my question on the economics part because you know that Florida has gotten better and the red states get better, and that states get better when they go from blue leadership to red leadership.
Well, that's not really true. Look at Colorado. I just did this. Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, it's gotten much better. Colorado, Jared Polis is doing a great job. I think
State of
that
Kentucky has gotten far worse under the leadership of Andy Bashir.
that is totally not true.
Yes, it absolutely is.
So I think that this is kind of crazy. I think they're trying to do an outlier. We can argue about Florida. I don't think that Florida has gotten better. Actually, that's going to be just for me.
The stats would just flat out disagree with you. The poverty rate would disagree with you. The
you're
job
starting
growth
to
would disagree with you.
you're starting to see
the
things
amount of
turn the
people
other
who would
way.
move there have disagree with you.
Yeah. I do think Ron DeSantis would have been a better president than Donald Trump. That's not really what we're debating.
I
wish you would.
I
wish you would have been
there,
for that. I definitely don't think you would have seen people storming the Capitol with Ron DeSanctimonious flags, beating up cops.
Ron DeSantis.
I think that's very safe.
Pause. Time's up.
Good to see you, man. I think I will go with the gentleman that's been taking notes over here. I felt like we have some unfinished business.
My claim is from the moment of conception, abortion is a grave moral evil.
From the moment of conception, I guess I would disagree with you.
Yeah.
But I think that that abortion reaches a point where it is a grave moral evil, and I would agree with you on that. I think it's something that I fall on a disparate side with a lot of people on the left on.
I'm curious where you put the line.
You know, I think it's complicated, but I'm pretty compelled by arguments related to the heartbeat, and I'll tell you this. I adopted my child. We had a couple of adoptions that went south, where I went and sat with mothers that were trying to make this hard choice, what to do, whether to have their child or whether to terminate the pregnancy, whether to parent the child, whether to give the child up for adoption. And so I get to sit there with them in the hospital room where you can, look at the monitor, you can see the heartbeat, you can see the little fingers. And in those rooms, like, you can feel a grave moral weight. Like, you can just feel it. Like, you can feel that the decision is a big decision.
Yeah.
I think that, when you get into now the nitty gritty of like how the government remediates that, like, I think that there are different questions, different opportunities and questions we can have.
This is obviously a really important thing, just given the numbers, right? And so I think someone said earlier, it's almost like a third of Gen Z is not here because of abortion. And so whether, where we put the line is actually a huge thing that we need to get right on, because human rights, right, the right to life is at stake. And so I think this is something very important that we need to think about. And so you said you're persuaded by heartbeat arguments. I'm just curious, what about a heartbeat makes you a human being, a valuable human being that's worth protecting?
Well, I think every human being has value.
Okay.
And I guess this is where I get into. I'm not trying to do a debate trick where I duck your question, because I'm happy to come back to this.
Yeah.
But this is where I do get frustrated with people on the right, and people that particularly that have supported Donald Trump, that who talk about the fact that they believe that every human has value and has dignity. Because I can't think of a public figure in my entire life who has had less respect for human dignity and human life than this president.
Well, maybe Joe Biden that advocates for abortion.
Well, no. Again, you're talking about. Okay, again.
Yeah.
You're talking about just abortion, and again, we can look. I'm not.
Well,
I'm not an expert. I didn't know. Well, no, of course it's a huge issue. And like I said, I think that European countries handle. Let me just go.
Your whole argument is.
You haven't heard my argument.
Well, I know what you're going to say is Donald Trump has done all these terrible things, right? But all the conclusion is from your argument is that Trump supporters that are pro-life are hypocrites. That's it. It has nothing to do with where life begins.
We're doing this. I love that we're doing this. I'm hoping a lot of young MAGA, young conservatives are watching this.
Yeah,
particularly young Christians. I want them to watch this, and I'm hoping to try to compel them to the arguments that human life having value. If you believe that in the unborn, which I do, and I think there's some questions about 3 weeks and 4 weeks, but I believe that every human life has value. If you believe that, then it's not about hypocrisy, it's about manifesting that same view of life once the kid is born. And in this country, we are eradicating support for mothers, for single mothers who need support to help their kids. Can I finish? We are menacing.
Not really. You're kind of just taking us into an area that it has nothing to do with.
It has everything to do with it.
Yeah.
Why is abortion a grave moral evil from the moment of conception? Because every human life has dignity, right?
Well, right, because it's literally the murder of an innocent human being.
And so if every human life has dignity, then we have to treat each other as such. We cannot, and that child, when they're born, that little baby, when they're born, they need to be able to survive. So we need to make sure that they have the medical treatment to survive. No, the mothers need to have support.
The kids
need to be able to go to good schools.
Organizations do so much.
The kids don't want to be scared that they're going to die by a mass shooter in their schools.
Yeah, but Tim, our differences,
if they're from another country doesn't want to be deported. I'm sorry. No.
Tim, our differences in opinion on what constitutes human flourishing when it comes to immigration or the welfare state or healthcare or all these different things.
I'm talking about human dignity.
Okay, human dignity. But our differences in our views with that have nothing to do with whether it's a human being at the moment of conception.
It has everything to do with
it doesn't, Tim. How?
What
is the argument that a heartbeat is what makes a human being a valuable person?
I came from a background of pro-life, as I said, and I came as a Republican. I came from a Catholic family, and I believe that unborn life has value. But human life having value, being pro-life, means instituting a culture of life. And when I was growing up in the Republican Party and in the pro-life movement, this was something that people talked about the culture of life. It meant all the way from life until death. It meant not having the death penalty. It meant not sending people to foreign gulags. It meant being compassionate conservatism. It meant giving mothers treatment.
Tim,
it means all of those things, man.
An innocent,
I want a culture of life in this
human
country.
being is completely different from a criminal who has raped and murdered innocent individuals.
Okay, well, sure.
They're completely different cases.
No, we live in a society where you're going to have to make laws. You have to understand the rights, because in a situation of an abortion, as you know, we are also we're talking about two human lives, excuse me. Like the life of the mother has value, in addition to the unborn life, right? And so you have to respect the rights of the mother to be able to make make judgments based on their health. The rights of the mother to make judgments based on.
Well, but we don't allow mothers, right, to murder their newborns, right, or their 2-year-olds,
of course not.
right.
Well,
and
I told
so
you I'm against.
Right, exactly.
I'm against second and third trimester abortions.
I know, but you brought it up as an argument, and so we don't do that. Why is that? It's because the newborn and the 2-year-old are human beings that we need to protect, right? And so let's get back to the actual question.
Now you're bringing it back up. Let's protect the newborns. Let's protect the people that are fleeing and want to come to this country to have a life for themselves. Let's protect mothers who are disproportionately in red states who are dying in childbirth. Let's protect the kids. Let's protect infant mortality.
Do you have a single argument for why the unborn before a heartbeat is not a human being and we can kill it? Do you have a single argument?
Yeah, no, my argument is basically that it's a tough judgment call, and I think that if you're making laws in a country that is not a Christian country.
How is it a tough judgment call? The science of embryology is extremely clear from the moment of conception. This is when a new, distinct human being comes into existence.
So that would make IVF illegal in a lot of cases, because there,
a lot of pro-lifers are against IVF. Eggs. Actually, Trump actually rescinded some of his statements and policies about IVF because he got so much pushback from the pro-life.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I think that those are really tough moral questions. Look, we don't live in a Christian. Do you want us to be a Christian nationalist country?
This is Jubilee. Like, this is where we're supposed to have these tough moral questions and debates.
And I'm telling you, I think that there's some areas where it's clear. I think we're not living in a Christian nationalist country. We are not living and so if you're going to live in a pluralistic society where people have different views, we have to respect the rights of the mother and the baby. Like, I just think that early on in a pregnancy, like, you have to make laws that are going to be
the
equivalent
of going back to like when slavery was around and saying, oh, well, slavery is a very complicated issue. These plantations are hiring people. Right. And so exactly, that's what you're saying. Yeah. And I'm saying it's actually really not that complicated of an issue. Yeah. It is a human life worth protecting. And in the same way slavery was wrong.
I just wish there was that passion for life from
Well,
the life
hold on.
of the 1-week-old zygote. I wish we had that passion
But Tim,
for the 2-year-olds that are
a
dying.
third of my
in childhood.
generation is gone. They are gone because of abortion, Tim. This is the greatest moral tragedy. I would say even greater than the Holocaust. As far as millions of lives are being killed, if I am correct, I am very passionate about that issue because of the implications. And so, Tim, I love your heart. I really see your heart behind it.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, please come up with some arguments that will actually define the view, or become pro-life, or from the moment of conception, defend the unborn.
I appreciate your passion on this issue, and like you said to me, my wish for you back and for folks that have this view is that they would have the same passion for the human dignity of the people that are being badly mistreated by this administration that they do for unborn kids.
I will have that passion when abortion is completely ended in this country.
Appreciate it.
All right, then. Great job.
Good to see you, man.
Good talking to you.
I think we've all gotten in our own silos so much when we're talking, particularly those of us who are like in the media. And after the last election and Trump won, I really wanted to commit myself to at least trying to communicate with people kind of outside the anti-Trump bubble, and particularly talk to younger people who I think feel very polarized right now.
I think Tim Miller is a great millennial debater. I think his stances come from a place of compassion, of just wanting the world to be a better place. I think that was something when we were talking about immigration or abortion or just children in general, something we could all agree on is we really want those demographics to be protected, and we may have different ways of going about that, but we care about them.
There's a deeper conversation that needs to be had in this country, and it's not about guns or abortion or these issues that are important to have, but also some deeper conversations about social cohesion. What does it mean to be an American? How do we move forward?
The main thing you can do as an individual to bridge the partisan divide is to see people from the other side as humans.